Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by FlowForma. For anyone that is new to FlowForma, we provide the world's leading no-code digital process automation tool. Our tool empowers the workforce of construction firms just like yours to drive rapid and company-wide digitalization. I'm really excited for today as we cover a highly relevant and time-critical topic, the Building Safety Act 2022, deploying a 6-week digitalization roadmap for compliance. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our two expert speakers for today, Paul Stone and Alison Brannigan. Alison is a territory manager for the construction sector in the UK. She's an advocate for the transformative impact of digital process automation in construction, and she is passionate about helping firms achieve their major strategic goals through digitalization. Alison will be providing you an overview of the Building Safety Act and the implications of the 3 gateways of compliance. Paul is a product strategist and construction digitalised expert at FlowForma. He's a wealth of experience in the construction sector in the UK and is our own in-house expert in the Building Safety Act. Paul will be guiding you through the steps you need to take to digitalise the golden thread of information across the construction lifecycle to stay compliant of the BSA. Paul will also present a really exciting real-world fire safety process to showcase how simple digitalization could be for the BSA. Paul and Alison, how are you doing today?
Great, thank you, Patrick.
Good, Patrick.
Brilliant. So just before we get started, I would like to invite everyone here today to take part in our poll. So what is your biggest challenge in preparing for the Building Safety Act 2022? The first option, driving adoption of digital technologies. The second, the speed at which you can digitalize processes. The third, thinking about the integrations and any challenges you have with integrating with other systems or technologies in your ecosystem. And the last, reporting on data for compliance. Just going to have a look at the results of this poll. Very interesting.
Yeah, reporting on data, that's a consistent challenge for most companies. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Paul, any feedback on the poll results?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, not too surprising that reporting for compliance is top of the list. And really what you need there is obviously a system of record that you can report out of easily. And that's certainly something we'll be going through today.
Brilliant, thank you. Without further ado, I'll pass over to Alison to introduce the Building Safety Act and the 3 gateways of compliance.
Great, thanks a million, Patrick. So really, I just wanted to set the scene. I want to start with an overview of the Building Safety Act. A lot of people are, wondering what exactly it is, and the legislation is changing quite quickly. So the Building Safety Act of 2022 is the largest piece of building safety legislation in the last 50 years across England and Wales. So in accordance to the updated legislation, it is actually applying to new and existing buildings that are 18 metres in height or 7 stories. The Act was introduced to promote safer homes, residential and healthcare buildings. And the legislation is being taken seriously at the government level, and non-compliance can lead to fines and/or the possibility of imprisonment. So for me, when I'm talking to customers, they really are, unsure about what is going to happen in the future. The Act is, as I said, being taken very seriously at a government level. It will be enforced. And it will be, again, for you guys, it's easier to do something now and to act now rather than retrospectively trying to fill in the gaps of the golden thread and the information, which I'm going to go into shortly. So why was the Act brought into effect? The main reason why the Act was brought in was as a response to the tragic Grenfell Tower disaster. The Grenfell Tower disaster brought a spotlight on building safety, especially high-rise buildings. So the publicity from the disaster prompted the UK government to review current legislations and implement a more rigorous series of regulations around building safety. So a lot of people want to know, who exactly does the BSA apply to? So the Building Safety Act applies to every stakeholder along the construction life cycle. This includes the architects, the contractors, the building owners, the developers, and the facilities management. The new duty holders are accountable persons, and these are responsible for the high-rise buildings. It will be the responsibility of the building owners to manage and drive the initiative towards having a golden thread of information. So again, we have another hot topic. So what exactly is the golden thread? The golden thread is actually a vital part of the Building Safety Act. Essentially, it is just a digital audit trail of the building safety information across the construction life cycle. It's as simple and straightforward as that. It will be the duty of the people responsible for the building to put in place and maintain a golden thread of information. Having a software solution that is designed for recording information will mean that staff will have easily accessible, reliable, up-to-date and accurate information on the building at all times. The golden thread does actually need to be created before the building work starts, and the golden thread must be kept updated throughout the design and the construction process. When the building work is complete, the golden thread must be handed over to the accountable person who is deemed responsible for the occupied building. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of information to keep track of. So having a software solution that's easy to manage and maintain this information is really key in order for you to be able to hand that piece of information over to your accountable person. So now that we've looked at an overview of the Building Safety Act, which again, 18 meters, 7 stories, golden thread of information, I want to go over some key dates and really how the gateways are working. The Building Safety Act was brought in, it actually has brought in the concept of gateways for compliance. So it's staggering the key dates out. So as we know, Gateway 1, if you didn't already know, it's actually been enforced since January of 2023. So as part of the gateway, plans requiring approval must be submitted that include adequate safety controls. So for the past 7 months, the conversation we've been having with organisations is how they start on their journey towards getting this in place. They also want to know, what does it look like if they need to pull information from different systems to make the flow of information seamless and an easy ask for them during the project lifecycle. Gateway 2 is expected to be enforced in October. So it is coming, it's looming. Gateway 2 is applicable to the pre-construction stage of the construction lifecycle. So building resources and construction plans must be submitted for approval, and the plans must include the mechanism that you're going to use that will be used to record changes to the approved safety controls. So that's really important. They have to include that mechanism of how you're going to present the information. So the building work cannot commence until Gateway 2 has passed. This has significant impact for the resources lined up to do the work, and it does impact in the investment that your building owner or developer has made. So obviously an easy to implement solution like FlowForma will satisfy this requirement immediately. It will have minimal disruption and requires minimal training to be onboarded, so Gateway 2 does not need to be an issue. Building work cannot commence until the Gateway 2 has been passed. So this is going to have significant impact for the resources that you have lined up to do the work, in addition to the building investors' return on investment predictions that you have as well. And finally, the last gateway. So Gateway 3 is also applicable in October of 2023. And that really is going to focus on post-construction stage of the project. Buildings must be approved, and this includes a submission of the as-built building. So you need a clear and concise record of everything that you've done throughout the building project. This is one of the most difficult gateways to pass, because as to make a submission, the builder must have recorded all variations from the approved plans and make sure that all checks are implemented to ensure the building work was completed correctly. So FlowForma is complete with a full audit trail on the back end, allowing you to clearly show who has done what and when. And Paul will be able to demonstrate this when he does his demo later on, which we're all excited about. So having a robust audit trail will eliminate any disputes that you have, and it gives complete transparency to every stage of the building life cycle. So this is really where your golden thread is evident. So if you can imagine, you have your approved plans, you have your qualified resources, you have the record of completions, and you have every single record of change on file. It's easily accessible, it's all in your SharePoint. So Gateway 3, if that's not passed, has the largest potential impact, as it can result in rework or additional costs, and in addition to any delays that you might suffer as a result as well. So really the onus is on you to drive this Golden Thread initiative, and it's not too late. If you do need something in by October, we can absolutely help you. So a lot of people are, they want to know how exactly they go about digitizing, and really there's only 3 routes that we typically see. Thanks, Patrick. So the first option that we come across is our out-of-the-box technologies. So we have systems that are complex. They don't really flex and scale as much as FlowForma does. Plus the BSA really is an evolving law. It's an evolving compliance. For them, it's an out-of-the-box solution that may or may not work for them, but a lot of companies, that doesn't, okay? Your second option then is for you to outsource a consultant to manage all this information, which is not really the best use of your money and of your time as well. It's a costly temporary fix, and it doesn't provide a long-term solution for BSA and the compliance. Whereas the only real option that provides the speed, agility, and the adaptability to the Building Safety Act is a fully customized no-code tool. This provides a fully adapted solution that empowers a workforce to digitize in under 6 weeks, while adapting to the needs with your internal and your external stakeholders. In short, this option will future-proof the business to the present and any future requirements of the Building Safety Act legislation. I hope this has given you a good insight into the gateways, into what the Golden Thread is and how we can help. I'm going to pass over to Paul now, where he'll provide further insights and give you a demo on this very exciting topic.
Thanks, Alison. So what I'd like to do, first of all, is frame the solution to this problem. We see that basically digitizing processes will help you create a system of record that ultimately can show and evidence the fact that you've been compliant with the BSA. So our focus really is on digitizing the processes that you may have in the workplace already, or you may be coming up with as a response to BSA 22. So you can digitize a number of different processes that relate to BSA. So one of the ones that we'll look at very briefly today is fire safety, but there are many other processes that would be required to show that, to evidence that you have been compliant with the BSA regulation. Now, our system by default uses SharePoint to store all the documentation, the processes, the data, etc., automatically, and providing you with that system of record. But we also integrate out to other systems as well. So every construction company out there right now has many systems in place already. And FlowForma is designed so that it can work with multiple different systems and bring an audit trail together that spans all of the different systems in your organization. So that's really important, as people have been looking at BSA already for some time. They've been on a digitization journey within the company for some time. They already have systems in place. FlowForma can work with those systems and, as I said, provide that audit trail. The way it does this is by digitizing business processes. Business processes are a number of different people working together to achieve a business goal, and in doing that, they may pass information between multiple systems. But the key thing about this is that normally, if you're digitizing a process that spans many different activities and systems, it's quite a job to do. It's quite difficult to do. With FlowForma, we make it easy, and we'll show you that in the demonstration today. But you can digitize processes at speed, which is key to actually reacting to new legislation that's coming in. So as the BSA is being implemented and changing, you can change your systems with it, you can change your processes with it, and maintain that digital record, and ultimately maintain the audit trail, because the history of your processes is basically the history of your tasks who did what, when they did it, etc. What data did they capture to evidence the fact that the work was done, including documentation, photographs, updates of drawings, etc. All of that information is captured along with that timeline of when it was done and the resources that actually carried out the work. So that's a really key thing. That's when we talk about audit trail, that's what we mean. It's an audit of the actual work that was done with the data to back up why it was done and how it was completed. So you're capturing all that information in one central store of information that you can then use as evidence so you ever get queried on your BSA obligations. And finally, sorry, quickly, we're just finishing off on that last point. Yeah, the point was that audit trail helps you, protects you against litigation. So it's allowing you to provide that evidence should you ever be called upon. But the other thing to say as well, an important point, is that digital processes guide your workforce to do things right. So when you define those processes, you define what you need as outputs of those processes to keep and maintain that digital audit trail as something that can be used if litigation occurs. But it's guiding the people in your workforce to actually carry out the processes correctly and in a timely manner, etc. So that's another key point, that you're actually not just generating the audit trail, you're actually driving that workforce to do the right thing at the right time. So that audit trail is a presentable piece of evidence if you're ever called upon to show the information. So if we move to the next slide. So we just like to talk about, we mentioned speed earlier on, the fact that FlowForma is really quick to deliver results. And this kind of timeline gives you an idea of what you can expect if you were to implement FlowForma today. First thing is, installation is very easy. It runs on top of SharePoint. So if you have SharePoint already, it's just a matter of clicking a button to install FlowForma into your environment. And then we provide you with direct access to a specialist who will help you implement all of the processes. Now, for BSA processes, we've developed a number of process templates. There are common processes that people would want to execute to ensure BSA compliance, but you can also build your own processes as well. The whole idea is you take one of our templates, you work with one of our specialists, and that all happens in week 1. And what that enables is in week 2, you can actually see your first process going live. Now people say, well, come on, that can't be right. Well, you've already got your SharePoint environment. FlowForma installs really quickly. We have a template ready to go for you. We can actually get that template up and running in your existing workflows really, really quickly. And at the same time, in parallel to that, we're training you to build out other processes yourself. So the whole idea is we act as a person who handholds you through this. So we'll sit with you, we'll get that first process live, and then we'll also be training you and your colleagues to build out and implement further processes. So the idea is by week 2, first process live, your colleagues are trained, and by week 6, you have a suite of BSA processes ready to go. So that's from today, that's looking at October 2023, just in time. And you have your digital processes in place in production, generating that audit trail and performance metrics, etc. And that's all ready to go in a 6-week time frame. Now, while people see this as being very ambitious, we've proven it time and time again with other construction companies that we can deliver on this in this kind of time frame. And the idea with FlowForma is that once you actually get it in place for BSA, you can, if you want to, use it for other functions and activities within your business as a general way to accelerate your business processes, track your performance, etc. We'll talk a little bit about this during the demonstration, but many customers by month 12 have over 50 processes implemented inside their organization. So a really significant digitization program, all kicked off from your BSA compliance, but actually resulting in digital processes running across your organization for all sorts of purposes. And at the end of the day, this digitalization brings significant benefits. So if we talk about our case study there, that would be great. Next slide. This particular case study is for a large hospital group and with 4 clinics nationwide who wanted to carry out fire safety checklists. Now, they had a system in place already, but the system in place was basically using paper and Excel spreadsheets to track things and emails to communicate. And this was proving to be very inefficient and very expensive. It cost a lot of time and resources to actually implement the system, get it running, keep it running. So FlowForma was put in place to replace it. They basically looked at FlowForma as a quick way to solve this problem, a quick way to improve things, because it's a no-code tool. What that means is that it's designed for people like you, construction workers and construction administrators, to actually build out the solutions themselves. And this particular organization did just that. They built out a solution to a digital solution to replace the paper and spreadsheet-based solution in the past. And they saw obviously an immediate reduction in paper. Paper was no longer used. They could fill in forms on their mobile devices to record that the fire safety checks were being done. All that information was collated centrally so that the fire safety officer could quickly see where there were any non-conformities. And what it enabled them to do was gather that information for reporting. So ultimately, it wasn't just a case of making people's jobs easier. You were also gathering all this information so you could make better decisions for the future. You could actually see all the non-conformities that were arising, and you might be able to identify common traits among the different fire safety checks and implement procedures and policies in your organization to actually make that better and make those non-conformities not happen in the future. So not just carry out corrective actions, which fixes the problem here and now, but also look to the future and see what changes you can make to ensure that those non-conformities were not occurring in the future. So this was really impactful in the organization. They immediately noticed time savings over 2 weeks per year, allowing more value-added tasks for the managers. And they were able to identify this because the system tracks everything you do. So you can quickly see how long it's taking for a task to be completed, for example. So you can quickly measure the impact, positive productive impact of digitizing processes. Okay, at this point, maybe we might go and have a look at the system. So let's jump into a demonstration. And what we'll do is we'll show you a demonstration of FlowForma. And I'll just share my screen here. Okay, so hopefully at this point, you'll be able to see a web browser. And in that web browser, you can see a dashboard. Now, what I'm going to do is, before we delve into this, just talk a little bit about FlowForma, the product, and how it works. So FlowForma is a system that's normally accessed via a web browser, but we also have mobile apps that allow people to complete processes while they're out on site. And those mobile apps will even support offline access. So you can gather data on, let's say, non-conformities and so on, while you're actually on the site, in the location, and then synchronize them up later on. The system is running inside of Microsoft SharePoint. So if you have Microsoft 365 or Microsoft Teams, you're running SharePoint there in the background, and that's what we use. It's a database we use to store all the process information and store all the data associated with that, and also all the documents that are associated with those processes. What this means is SharePoint is your system of record. Now, people often say to me, well, hang on a second, we utilize SharePoint in our environment, but we do have other systems as well, so Autodesk, for example. So how does this work with those systems? Well, FlowForma is designed to integrate to other systems in the background. So you can run your process in your SharePoint environment on those mobile devices, etc., and they will synchronize with those backend systems and communicate with the backend systems as well. So if you have an already established CDE, where you're using a certain document management system, you're using a certain database to store your master details of your project, for example, FlowForma can work with that. FlowForma can integrate into that in the back end. Okay, so when you log into the system, you're essentially going to a SharePoint site, and this SharePoint site is being configured as a dashboard. So we will provide you with these dashboards so that you can use these dashboards in your own environment. And this particular dashboard is specifically for Building Safety Act and contains some processes that relate to that act. And what I'm going to do is demonstrate one of these processes, show you what a digital process actually looks like, to give you some sense of how digital processes can be used to manage your Building Safety Act compliance. So we're going to kick off with a fire safety checklist. And to launch the fire safety checklist, I just click on an icon. It then opens up in my browser. And this is what all of our processes look like. It's basically a combination of a process, which you see at the very top of the screen, with some data. And that data is associated with a process step. So the very first step in this process is a weekly fire safety checklist, which is typically executed in the field by a resource. And what they're doing is they're looking at a building location and they're identifying whether a set of questions are correct or not. So, for example, the very first question here are all corridors, passages, exits, routes free of rubbish and obstructions? And I'm saying no, they're not, because I've noticed an obstruction, bag in corridor. And I'm going to select from my device, I have a picture of the bag, and then I'm going to upload it and highlight the bag. And that's my initial record there of a non-conformant item on the fire safety checklist. Now, typically this is done on a mobile device, and on that mobile device, when you upload that picture, you can actually take a picture with the camera on the mobile device. It's then automatically uploaded. You can also upload an image file that you might have, let's say a drawing. In fact, I'll show you an example of another form shortly that actually would show you that working on a mobile. Okay, so I've recorded this non-conformity. I'm going to go down to the second question. Are all fire doors blah, blah, blah? And I'm going to say, no, they're not. There's a door obstructed. There's actually a wedge in a door. And I can upload my photographic evidence that shows that that's actually occurring. And I can highlight the offending wedge. So basically, this is what you're doing with FlowForma. You're filling in forms. The forms can be pre-populated. The forms, the data that you see, you can interact with other backend systems, for example, your project management system, to pull in project details into the form, to minimize the amount of work that the form filler needs to do. So all the form filler needs to do is fill in minimal detail just to record that they have carried out their task, which is to conduct a weekly fire safety checklist, and that they've uploaded evidence that this task has been done. And at the end of it all, they press the submit button down here. And what that does is it submits that work and moves on to the next process step. Now, in this case, the next process step is going to be a process that involves assigning actions. So first of all, this step in the process would normally be carried out by the fire safety officer, who would be a different person. Now, each person in your organization is going to have a dashboard that shows them what tasks are currently assigned to them. So as we move the workflow on from fire safety to assign actions, the fire safety officer will actually see assign actions, that job appear on their dashboard. They can click on that and it will automatically jump into the assign action step. That then shows only the non-conformities. So all the other questions have disappeared. It's only showing you the things that you need to deal with, right? So it's all personalized to you and the job that you're doing right now. So I'm just seeing that I've got a bag in the corridor and I've got the wedge in the door. And now I have to decide what I'm going to do about that. Now I'm going to pass these on to somebody else to action. So somebody has to go and deal with the bag and deal with the wedge. And I can specify who that is in this form. So if I scroll along to the right here, I'll see that I can enter in the name of the person that's going to deal with this. And I can also assign this maybe to somebody else. So I'll assign that to Dara here. So once I've entered in the person's name, the system will then create 2 new tasks, as we see here, these 2 tasks for action owner 1 and 2, and assign one to David and one to Dara. And so the system is basically allowing you to execute a series of process steps. And on each process step, it's gathering evidence. The evidence is in many formats. There's lots of different types of data that can be captured. So you can capture images, you can capture locations, capture lots of detail. And all that evidence is being saved in an audit trail. And as the system moves through the different steps, it could also carry out communications. So it can automatically send emails, it can automatically generate documents. In many environments, you actually need let's say a PDF document as an output that you then forward on to your client. The system will automatically generate this documentation for you. And all the information that's being captured here is being stored back in SharePoint in a structured folder structure. So it's all stored in a structured manner. You can actually name files that are being generated and stored in use specific file naming conventions and so on. So all that data is stored in that central database in the background. So if we have a quick look at the data store, so in this area here, we're seeing those fire safety checklists gradually being built up. And for each of these fire safety checklists, I can actually check to see what the audit trail is. So if I click on the audit button here, it shows me that detailed audit trail that is basically the evidence that you can then analyze to see what work was done and who did the work on it. So this audit trail is filterable, so you can find specific points in the audit trail if you want. You can find specific dates or specific resources who worked on it. In this case, it's running in my demo environment, so it tends to be the same person who carries out all the tasks. But in reality, different people carry out different tasks, and you can actually identify who did what and exactly when they did it, etc. So you have a full detailed audit trail that's captured in the background. Now that audit trail is available for reporting. And also one of the things the audit trail does, it's not specifically related to BSA, but it does record performance metrics as well. So you can see who's done what, but also how long it took. So we have full tracking on process performance. It's very useful for if you want to see things that are running late. This works in real time. So you're able to see that, well, for my fire safety checklist, I've actually got 12 of them running late. And I can click on that icon and dig into the 12 processes that are running late and find out why. So it provides you with that real-time performance on your operations, so you can see things that are being delayed. You can go in and address those either directly, because you can see which resources are working on the relevant processes. So I can see straight away, oh, Paul Stone is doing this particular job, and then David is doing this one. But also, over time, I can look at the detail within these steps in each process and identify process bottlenecks and improve my operations to make my company more productive. Okay. So one thing I'd like to show you very briefly is how quick and easy it is to create these processes. And maybe just before that, actually, I'll just show you briefly the mobile interface. It's a little bit difficult to do on a desktop screen. Obviously, you have to look at a mobile device. But what this does is allows you to get some feel of what the mobile interface looks like on a tablet, for example. And I'm going to just click on an example here, safety observation report, that shows you a typical mobile form. The system is designed so that basically it would you create a solution for a desktop, it's automatically available on the mobile. And this is one of the reasons it's so fast. You don't have to build separate applications or separate digital processes for desktop or mobile. They automatically will work with each other. Okay, well, sorry, regardless of the device that you're using. Now, I mentioned earlier on that we capture a large amount of different types of data. And this form gives you an example of that. It's showing you that it captures a location. I'm currently located in Dublin, in Ireland. It's capturing my GPS location. Also, when you upload a photograph sorry, a picture, you can take a picture with the mobile device if you want to. You don't have to upload it from your file area. The forms are also very user-friendly. So all the forms, regardless of the type of digital process that you have, they all work in the same way. And we find this is really useful for adoption, because one of the key things that we hear again and again from the construction industry is, oh, I bought this new system, but I can't get it adopted by the workforce. Our system is designed to be easy to adopt. You can actually include your own descriptions of helpful information inside the form, so that basically you're guiding the person in the field as to what to do next. And as you enter information, the system is responsive. So if I were to put in, I want to put in a corrective observation to this particular safety observation I'm making, it then provides me with a whole set of additional data that I can fill in to deal with that corrective observation. So I might want a follow-up action, for example, and give it a signature here. And then ultimately, I want that follow-up action to be carried out. So now when I press the submit button, it will move on to the next step in the process, which would be to carry out the follow-up action that I've prescribed. So the forms are very, very responsive. The whole idea is that an end user in the field will find them very easy to use. And then as they're being filled in and executed, they're automatically communicating between the different resources involved in all the different steps of the process. Excuse me, so that the process is running smoothly. The system also has the ability to generate documentation, like I mentioned earlier on. So it can generate PDFs that contain the data from within the form itself. Just to have a quick look at how those PDFs are created, they're actually created using Microsoft Word. And what we've done is we've built in a plugin for Microsoft Word that allows you to merge the information from the form onto a PDF or Word template that you create yourself. So the whole idea is, if you're using Word forms at the moment, it's really easy. You can take those Word forms and then merge in the data from your digital process into the form, so that when you generate a PDF, it contains all that data from the form. We find this is really useful in the construction industry. Lots of people, even though they're getting rid of paper, putting in a digital system, they still require the PDF output as a piece of evidence that they can then send back to the client. So this quick and easy way of creating that PDF output, people find very useful in construction. Okay, what we'll do now is maybe look at a little bit at the how you build out these digital processes. So first of all, to say that we provide you with templates. So the weekly safety checklist that we looked at, the fire safety checklist that we looked at, is one of our templates that we can provide to you, and we can provide you with other templates as well. In fact, not only just for BSA, we actually have a series of construction accelerators that include a wide variety of construction processes. We can provide those to you. But the thing about it is, once you start using the system, you'll realize very quickly that you can just simply create your own processes from scratch. It's really quick and easy. We talked about a 1 week, 2 week time frame earlier on in the show, and it really is that fast. And it's that fast because we have this no-code configuration tool. We call it the Flow Designer, and in the Flow Designer, you can create a series of process steps, and on those process steps, you can create the data items that you want to capture. We call them questions. So you can create as many questions as you like to capture all that information, and you can do that really easily. I'm going to show you how easy it is. In the fire safety checklist here, I'm going to add in a new process step. I'm going to say manager approval. And what we're going to do is add this in as a step in the process. As you can see, it appears here as the last step in the process, but I want it to be the second step. So I want there to be a manager approval of the fire safety checklist before it goes on to assign actions. So I'm altering the workflow here. I'm adding in a new task. And on that task, I want to add in a question. So I want somebody to say, Do you approve? Yes, no. Oops, excuse me, I have my caps lock on there. And the type of answer I want is a yes or a no. So let me just go down here. There's lots of different types of data that you can capture, like I mentioned earlier. You can upload files as an answer to a question. You can record a date and time. You can default that to today, for example. And you can make it read-only, so it's a useful timestamp that shows people, for example, when they uploaded the document. And there's lots of, you can also handle digital signatures within this system. But what we're going to do is I'm going to scroll all the way down here and pick yes, no, and press save. And that adds the question into the form straight away. So now what we have is the first step is capturing all the answers to the fire safety questions. The second step, manager approval, ask the person for the approval, yes or no. And then the third step is assign actions. So it's really easy to add in steps and questions and build out a process that works for your environment. It works the way you want to work. At the end of the day, the BSA doesn't tell you that you have to work this way or that way. What it's trying to do is to make sure that you're gathering evidence, gathering that golden thread that's saying, this is what we did, right? And then it's up to you as responsible people to do it right. But the key thing is that you need that system of record that gathers the evidence that shows you're a BSA compliant. And that's what FlowForma does. And it does it in a way that's flexible. So that gathers evidence to accommodate the way that you work, the way your resources work. And it gathers that information in one big central database that you can then use for reporting, like I said earlier on. Okay, this gives you some idea of how those processes are constructed. What I'm just going to very briefly mention is that you also have this concept of rules. Now, what rules are automated actions that happen in the background. I'm not going to go into it in a lot of detail. You can contact us and get a full-blown demonstration that covers off all this detail. But the key thing I wanted to say is that those rules are the automated actions that happen in the background. So if you imagine that your steps in a process, they're the tasks that people, human beings in your company carry out every day. And the data is the evidence that those tasks were being done. The business rules are automated actions that the system does in the background to help you get your job done. So for example, you might have some data integrations. We have lots of different integrations. You'd be pleased to know I'm not going to go through them all, but we can basically integrate with lots of backend systems. So as a person is filling in a form, it can automatically reach out to a backend system and pull in, let's say, the project details, or pull in the current timesheet details or whatever, so that you can quickly push and pull information out of FlowForma. The other thing we do is, I'll just briefly mention communications. So we carry out lots of automated actions that do communications. What does that mean? Well, it might be, for example, to send an email. Send an email out to a client or a supplier or a contractor, or maybe send an email to one of your colleagues telling them that they should check the dashboard, that they've got some work to do. Click on this link, please, to carry out your task, that kind of thing. So emails are still very important, but these are automated emails that the system automatically sends. And the whole idea with that is that you can send targeted emails to targeted people, so they're not irrelevant. They're emails that require action, call to action, and that the system can do that for you automatically. You can also generate documents. We talked about this a little bit earlier on. It's so important to be able to generate documents as you're executing the process to help with that system of record in the background. Now, there's lots of little features in FlowForma. For example, generating barcodes and recognizing barcodes, but I better not start talking about it because it will take far too long to go through each little detail. But sufficient to say that FlowForma is a very versatile system. It really can tackle a lot of different scenarios. It's more than capable of doing the work on BSA, and many people will use it for other processes as well, so not just BSA related. So you can do that if you want to. also the system allows you to work with lots of different types of files. So one key thing with BSA is having that ability to manage all that building information. And the building information may be in lots of different types of files. So FlowForma is designed to work with every type of file that you have. So it's not just simple image files that we have here, for example. It's working with documents, obviously, with whether they're editable kind of Word documents or whether they're PDFs. It's also working with images that you would have taken from drawings, for example, in your backend system. So you could upload a image of a drawing. In fact, maybe we can quickly show you that. So you could, for example, upload an image here of a drawing file and highlight that particular area where this file safety issue is occurring. Okay, so the system will work with your backend system as well and pull the drawings into FlowForma so that you can highlight them and address issues in particular places and particular locations. Okay, so with that out of the way, I think it's probably best now to go back and have some questions and answers.
Thank you, Paul, for that really exciting demo. And I hope everyone is really as inspired as I am with the demonstration and the highlighting all of the various functionality of FlowForma. So we have lots of questions coming in for our audience today. First question I'd like to pass over to Paul. We use multiple technologies in our business. How easy is FlowForma to integrate with other systems?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Certainly, we support a wide range of integrations, lots of integration options, and we can go through those in detail with you. Where with each new customer that comes along, we do an analysis of their system landscape, what system they have in place right now, and how we would integrate with each one of those systems. So we integrate with lots of construction as project management systems, for example. We also integrate with databases directly. So if you have, let's say, a SQL database in the background, we can integrate that with it directly. And we also integrate with generic applications as well, like, for example, Microsoft Dynamics CRM. It's a common CRM system, and we talk to that. We integrate with using various mechanisms. That includes things like Microsoft Logic Apps and Microsoft Power Automate, so you can actually use those tools to link FlowForma in with your existing systems. So there's lots of integration options. The best thing, rather than try and go through every single one of them, because there are literally hundreds, is for you to give us a call, go through any specific integration scenarios that you have, and we'll be more than happy to tell you how we can integrate with those systems.
Thanks, Paul. Another question here is, can FlowForma track the competencies and qualification of resources tracking the tasks?
Yes, absolutely. So one of our most common use cases across not just BSA, but like construction and wider still, is client onboarding, or sorry, employee onboarding, excuse me, employee and contractor onboarding. It's just a really common use case because everybody has a slightly different approach to it. So that no package system out there is going to solve all your onboarding woes, right? So FlowForma is a really useful system in it. You can onboard resources and you can put in whatever quality checks that you want inside those processes to ensure those resources are properly qualified. But you can also tie that into specific projects. So you can say that for this role on this particular project, you need a particular type of resource with a set list of qualifications. You can actually match that to the contractors that you're onboarding onto the project to ensure that they have the right certifications and to highlight any gaps, and then have a responsible person approve if those gaps are allowable or not, and then address them and so on. So all of that complication you can easily build into your FlowForma process.
Got it. Thanks, Paul. Another question here for Alison. Joseph, what does no code mean?
Yeah, so when I'm talking to clients, existing and new, they're saying, look, Alison, I don't have a development team. I don't have anyone really on my team that has any coding experience. So when we say low code, which is LOW, so low code versus no code, low code is an out of the box technology. Okay, so it's something that you have to configure. Whereas FlowForma has gone down the no code, meaning that with the interface that Paul demonstrated there, it means that anyone, once you're trained, can use the software. It is as easy and as user friendly as it gets, meaning that anyone, you don't have to have a team of developers or any sort of coding experience. So that's really where FlowForma is different in the market, and where we empower everyone to manage their own processes, because not everyone, as I said, has the ability to have a whole team of developers coding different forms. And with our training and our agile approach, meaning we will handhold you, not literally, but we will make sure that within 4 to 6 weeks you're fully up to date and up to speed. And we work in an iterative approach, meaning that if week 1 check-in goes to week 2 and you want to change something, we can do it immediately. So that again is all something that we could walk through with you if we had a one-to-one consultation.
Thanks, Alison. Another question here for Paul. Can you upload multiple images to one task within FlowForma?
Yes, you can upload as many images as you like. The system can support, you can have multiple questions for different types of documents, let's say, that you want to upload, and you can make those mandatory, so somebody must upload a document, and then you can put in a review step in that process for somebody to visually check all those documents to make sure they're all correct. So yeah, we got a lot of flexibility around those documents. You can also use the system for external resources. So you can have your suppliers, let's say, when they're being onboarded, upload documents that relate to their contract and so on. So yeah, it's very flexible in terms of document management. And this is one of its big benefits, of course, sitting on top of SharePoint, which is a document management system. You can actually upload the documents via FlowForma, save them all in SharePoint, and control them then in SharePoint later.
Thanks, Paul. Another question here. We need to provide access to our weekly fire checks to external contractors. Is that possible with FlowForma?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I didn't get time to show you in the demonstration is that we allow access to external people. So normally, when people are carrying out tasks in FlowForma, they are internal people. They are logged into your internal systems and they are recording that information. But FlowForma uniquely allows you to involve external people like suppliers and clients and contractors, so that they can actually, let's say, fill in that fire safety checklist without having to log into the system. And they can even use their own external logins, like their Gmail login, and that gets stamped on the audit trail. So yeah, I think it's a very common thing in our construction client base that external access is really important, and it's used widely to record things like contractor timesheets, that kind of stuff. But you can definitely use it for also for fire safety checklists, etc.
Thank you.
And just a quick note on that. Obviously, it is extremely secure. It operates off a complete different, the external system. It has no bearing on your internal system, so there's no issues around safety and security. Just to touch on that.
Thanks, Alison. Another question here, Paul, which is, can FlowForma help with retrospective capture of data for existing buildings?
Yeah, absolutely. So the information, we have a number of people who come along to us and say, well, actually, we do have a store of data, but it's just not in the right format. It's not in the right organization for, to help us with BSA. Can we reuse that? And you can actually use it, go through a process of reassigning that data, realigning that data, so that basically it's in a more presentable format that aligns with the obligations you have on the BSA. So it's definitely something that you can do, but also you can, and many people will have to consider their existing buildings and how they're going to make new operations compliant with BSA in the existing buildings. And you can put in digital process in place to ensure that any new works that you do in those existing buildings are done in a compliant manner. I hope that answers the question well enough.
Yep, that's a good answer. Thanks, Paul. Another question here. It's quite a long one. So the golden thread has a lot to do with document management, drawings, product data sheets, etc.
Yeah.
Most of the times, the client will dictate software like ASITE to the subcontractors. How does FlowForma help to achieve compliance with the golden thread in this instance?
Yeah. Can I take that one? Is that okay?
Yes,
Because
Paul.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely. Yeah, go on.
that's kind of an integration one. So if you take ASITE, for example, a great example. So if the client is saying that you must use ASITE, FlowForma provides additional features that ASITE doesn't have in terms of workflow and process. But it can, like I was saying earlier on with the integrations, it can actually save information then into ASITE. It can also retrieve information from ASITE. So if you have an existing implementation of ASITE that was put in place maybe when the building was constructed originally, let's say, and you want to continue using that, but you want to ensure that all your processes are BSA compliant, you can use FlowForma alongside ASITE. So FlowForma will integrate into ASITE, retrieve the project details into the form, for example, and then you upload your documentation, and then it will save it back into ASITE. And it still maintains that audit trail. So FlowForma still has that audit trail of all the actions that were taken. And what ASITE is, if you like, holds the master set of data. So the master set of documents, the master set of drawings would be in ASITE, while all the audit trail and work detail would be in FlowForma.
That's great, Paul. Thanks. So that's all we have time for in terms of our Q&A today. I'd just like to thank our two speakers, Alison Branigan and Paul Stone, for their key insights today. And I'd like to thank everyone here for joining. I hope you found it really insightful. So please look out for the Demystifying the Golden Thread ebook. You'll receive a copy. It's full of even further insights into this subject. Please contribute to the survey at the end. This will help us iterate and improve content going forward for the next webinar. And I'd highly encourage you to take us up on the schedule of free BSA consultation. This will help you accelerate your own BSA digitalization plans for the future. Thanks once again, everyone, and look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.